All right, hello everyone. Good evening. Welcome to Reading, Writing, and Ralph. I am happy to be here. I am back in the DMV. Tonight we are welcoming an Alexandria author. Super exciting. Her name is Lane Clarke, and she just released a new book. It came out in July, so it's hot off the presses. It is a coming of age story. We're going to get a little bit more sentimental, a little bit more emotional tonight. It is called Love Times Infinity. As always, there is accompanying trivia, so be the first to get the answer right, and you will get a free signed copy of Lane's book. As always, I would like to thank our sponsors, the Kathleen and Eddie Arthur Hearts of Love Fund. Again, they are still doing some great things. We're almost ready to post about what they have coming up next, so that is super exciting, and there will be a story when that is ready to go, so stay tuned for that. And now I'm going to bring Ralph on so he can tell us more about tonight's author. Hi, Ralph. How are you?
Great. How are you doing, Grace?
I am good. I am happy to be back. I'm happy to be here with you.
I know we've got so much going on. We just announced a live show on October 15th at Gadsby's Tavern and Museum, a 2-hour mystery at the museum. The details are available online. I'm looking so forward to that. That's going to be quite an adventure. And
yeah, no, I'm excited. This will be my first time shooting, not my first time shooting live in person, but my first time shooting live in person with you. So it will be a fun night, and everyone should tune in for some surprises.
It'll be a blast. It'll be a blast.
Mm-hmm.
And tonight's guest, Lane Clarke, a fairly young author who, in her first work, is delivering a very loud message with a very powerful voice that belies her years, to be quite honest. And it's it's something that everyone should read because it hits home on a lot of issues, family relationships, and a whole host of other things that I think are very important in today's day and age.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, it is still really new. So I'm glad we're getting to talk about it, get a little bit of hype. And I am going to go read it. I'm going to go buy a copy because it is brand new. So we're going to learn how you can go buy a copy, where you can go buy a copy. But I think I'm going to let you and Lane take it from here.
Great. Thanks, Grace.
Hey, Ralph.
Hi, Lane. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Welcome to Reading, Writing, and Ralph. It's good to have you.
Thank you for having me on.
And I was telling the viewers that, this is such a powerful message with such a loud voice from someone as young as yourself. So, I always like to have our authors tell the viewers about themselves. So why don't you start there? Tell us about yourself, your background, where you grew up, what your career is, and then how you got into writing.
Yeah, I'm Lane. I grew up in Richmond, Virginia, which is where Love Times Infinity takes place. I love Virginia, so I was really excited to come back after I went to law school in Chicago. I'm a lawyer by trade, and getting into writing, I've always been a writer. I never really tried to write entire books. I just kind of wrote a couple scenes here or there, share it with my friends. But during law school, I got more into reading again. I had kind of, once you go to college and law school, you kind of don't have as much time. And just seeing how much more diverse the books were when I found my way back to it, I just thought, hey, maybe I could try this.
Now, where'd you go to law school?
I went to University of Chicago.
How'd you like Chicago?
It is cold. I am very much, I like it like 80 degrees plus. So that was kind of a shock to me that it's like 40 degrees for 10 months of the year. It was an adjustment.
Yeah, I spent a couple of years in Chicago and it was very cold. And
it's just people tell you and you're not prepared.
They tell you the first year when it's minus 10, you're going to freeze. The second year when it's 10 degrees, you're going to be out in a t-shirt. And it kind of played out like that.
Yeah.
But how did you get? How did you pick this topic and this message?
Yeah.
Again, and you're very young. You're probably, I think, under 30. You're a young author. How did you choose this topic?
Yeah. Well, when I started writing it, I was really mostly writing it for myself. Mitchie, who is the main character, has a story that's very similar to mine growing up. I had a similar relationship with my mother. I was also the result of a teenage sexual assault that happened to her. And so, working through a lot of those feelings, when I started writing this book, thinking to myself, why aren't you over this stuff now? Why is it still affecting you so much? And getting to kind of rewrite my own story a bit and give Mitchie a lot of kind of the support and closure that I had wished I'd had, was a really healing process, to be honest.
Wow, wow. Yeah, I think I always when I talk to fiction writers, and I've written a couple of fictions now, and I think in every fiction that you write, there's always a part of you because you draw from that experience. And this one, you've got uh, um, teenagers, and those teenagers are facing a lot of pressures. And so, talk about those for a second, the pressures that they face, the anxieties, and some of the things that troubled you, or troubled Mishi that you wrote about.
Yeah, I think when you're, in that junior, senior year of high school, and, you're kind of expected to make lifelong decisions when you're really young, and the pressure that comes with that of, am I good enough to reach for these schools that I want? Do I have to sell my trauma to get these schools to even look seriously at me as an admittee? It's just a lot going on for teenagers whose emotions are already really high, to kind of dump a lot of that on them. And especially Mitchie, she's a first generation college student, so she doesn't really have an established network of people who can explain the college admissions process to her, or really how she's even going to pay for it, because it's not a given in her family that you apply and you go, and that's just kind of the accepted path. It really is her struggling with, one, does she deserve to have a life where she can pursue her dreams, knowing that her own life took so much away from her mother? And even if she does get there, is it going to be something that she actually can attain due to financial issues or anything else?
Have you, when you were writing this, did you give any thought at all to looking back, let's say, to the boomer generation and the teens during those years, and how that might align and compare to the teens in current America, and how they paralleled or how they were different?
Yeah, I mean, for Mitchie and for me, I was a first generation college student, so college was not really like a thing that was discussed. But I think especially today's kids now, they're thinking about, how much student loans am I going to take on, and how is that going to limit me later in my future, depending on what I want to do. Maybe I won't have the kind of career that would make this easy to pay off. Maybe I have to make decisions about my career that might not align with what I really want to do. And so I definitely don't want to say it's easier, because I think, both groups had their issues that they had to deal with. But I do think it's supposed to be kind of this like, oh, you go to college, you can do whatever you want. And it very much doesn't feel like that for a lot of people.
I don't think it's ever been like that. And let me tell you, a lot of the baby boomers, like myself, were also first generation college students. And it was real simple for us back then. If you didn't have the money, you didn't go, right? And if you didn't go, then you faced two other issues. You were going to mature really fast and probably get married, or for the males, you were going to get drafted and end up in Vietnam. So there were a ton of pressures. But today's teenager seems to take a lot more on their shoulders. So do you think that's a truer statement, or do you think both generations just bore their issues the same, but just a little differently?
Yeah, I mean, I think both groups had, their own things to contend with. If the choice is college or war, I mean, that's a very high stakes decision. Versus now, the decision is, the cost of college it's just astronomical at this point. And if you don't come from a family that makes that a little bit more bearable, it really is you trying to kind of think about your life, 20, 30, 40 years in the future. And it's just such a hard thing to ask of really anyone, but especially, a 16, 17-year-old kid to be thinking about, their life 50 years from now. So, and I think both groups dealt with that. I always want, kids should just want to have them be kids for as long as possible. But unfortunately, at least the way we function now, is it's very much, they kind of have to become adults when they're 15.
Yeah, I think you're making, well, I think they are becoming adults, maybe at the same pace, just different type of adults. But I think, back when I grew up, they were becoming adults because they were going to get married and raise a family by the time they were 18. Now it's different I think in this aspect, that they're being asked to make a life decision for what they're going to study at an age of 15 or 16.
Yeah.
When they're not even sure what they're going to be thinking about in 30 days, right?
Right, exactly. Their interests change so rapidly. You're always thinking about, you don't even know what jobs will be a good decision in 10 years. So it's kind of like trying to tell the future. And it's just, it's a sad thing to watch. But hopefully, and especially I think, raising children and whatnot, we're definitely pushing that back. My generation and the one below me is definitely, I think, the state of student loans and all of these things kind of makes those things feel less attainable. Like, oh yeah, I don't want to have a child if I can't support them.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, at this point, I'm going to give the first trivia question to the audience. And let's see how good they are. So the first question of the night. Remember, the first person in with the correct answer will get an autographed copy of Love Times Infinity. So the first question is, what novel is considered the all-time best coming-of-age book? So what book is the best coming-of-age novel of all time? Not necessarily a bestseller. So this kind of the best-selling book of all time, but the one that's considered the best coming-of-age novel of all time. So let's Mishi went through and one of the things to me that she struggled with was acceptance. And it was kind of she was struggling with it, and there was fear. So talk about that. What does acceptance mean to young adults today, and why are they so stressed out about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think young adults and even the older people are just very attuned to what other people think of them. I think there's a lot of noise, especially now, about who you're perceived to be, fear that if you're not what people expect, that you will kind of be ostracized. For Michi, she very much thinks that, at least in the beginning, that love is somewhat conditional and that people are only in her life because they don't really know everything about her. And if they did, then they might not accept her. And so she hides those things about herself. And I think that's just a very real feeling to one, while you're trying to figure out who you are, trying to hide the parts of yourself that you don't think are valid or worthy, instead of just kind of trying to figure out who you are and then letting people see you.
Yeah, she struggled with acceptance. She struggled with uncertainty, and she was always searching for that familial kind of love. And so, talk about the term her grandmother used, which was love times infinity. What does that mean in this character setting?
Yeah. So just in addition to kind of like a cute thing that she does with her grandmother, I think her grandmother is almost the most hurt by Mitchie's insecurities, because her grandmother has so much faith in her and loves her completely unconditionally and just kind of wants Mitchie to see it. And so for her, love times infinity is really like, there's absolutely nothing that could make me love you less. It's, it's eternal, it's forever. And so that's kind of the underlying meaning behind why she started it with Mitchie.
Yeah. The also the characters, you said Mitchie hid a lot of things, but even Derek hid a big aspect of his life from her.
Yeah.
So why would someone like Derek, who was a star athlete, right, choose to insulate himself and protect himself by not disclosing everything about him?
Yeah, I mean, I think he suffers from the same thing of, he very much kind of molds his public image, so that people only see what he wants them to see, pretty much. And he thinks that protects him from judgment or people knowing too much and then making assumptions about who they think he is as a person. And so he finds some power in kind of being able to control the narrative about his life. He's at a school that really isn't that diverse. And so I think it's really common for kids of color to kind of want a lot of control over how people perceive them, because there can be a lot of fear in being having personality traits or things in your past that people might feel, are, unworthy or something.
Yeah, but he was such a confident person on the basketball court. And yet he seemed to be a guardian angel of some sort at times.
Yeah.
But yet it did certain things at a distance.
Yeah.
So a lot of the plot centers around Mishi seeking or wanting to seek out her birth mother. Talk about that for a second. And that hits home for a lot of people in different ways. Some people because they have that same kind of issue. Others because they become estranged from family members and they never know or may never get to the bottom of what the issue is. So tell it from your perspective what that is all about.
Yeah. So, Mitchie has a very similar relationship with her mother that I had with mine when I was growing up. And I think it allowed me to kind of give her a little bit of closure. I think it's easy to have, like a happy ending. We're all, everything, we're all family, we're all great. But I think it's a lot more realistic to have it the way it is, in which maybe Mitchie doesn't get exactly the ending that she wants, but she gets one that allows her to move forward. And so I wanted to give her the chance to see that while she could have this person in her life, if her mother wants to be involved, her self-worth and her self-value is not tied to whether or not her mother wants to have a relationship with her. And so that's why I wanted to include that. And it was actually a pretty late addition. I had initially kind of made her mother's character more of, I guess, like an antagonist. But looking back, I just thought, her mother has her reasons, and we may disagree with them or agree with them. I really don't take a stance because I think it's really up to interpretation. But she has her reasons, and to some extent, they make sense. And we just kind of have to accept some of the ways in which she's chosen to try to heal from her past. And so I think a lot of us, when we have a parent that's not involved, we can kind of think that something's wrong with us. And sometimes it really is just, I needed the space to heal. And Mitchie just kind of has to accept that and know that her mother's absence is not, because of anything that she could have done differently or could be.
Yeah. We have a winner. So let's have Grace on and see who the winner is.
Yes. So the answer, while a little subjective, I would say it is the most renowned coming of age story. It's beloved. It's controversial. It's in almost every single high school and college curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
It is The Catcher in the Rye. And John Gorski got the answer correct.
Way to go, John.
Yeah.
So
I wouldn't have guessed that one.
That's a classic. That's the gold standard. Maybe your book will replace it.
Fingers crossed.
It's a lot of issues, but that are similar to yours, but just in a different way, different times, a different way. The other character that I found charming and interesting was Jojo. Why don't you talk about Jojo? I like that character.
Yeah, she's my favorite. She's just, I feel like she's the best friend that everyone deserves. She is very much, she doesn't take crap from anyone, but she is also very supportive of Mitchie. She's probably like the most upset whenever Mitchie just has really negative self-talk, because Jojo loves her and has so much respect for her. And she has her own things and her own family going on, but she is still just like Mitchie's backbone pretty much. And I really wanted to make a character who is kind of like the queen bee type of character, but is also extremely kind and extremely smart. I just wanted her to be just the person that you almost like hope you are. Everyone's like, I want to be that person. Jojo is kind of like my goal person.
Yeah, she's something. I think the readers get a kick out of Jojo.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask the second trivia question. And see who's on their toes. So in the film adaptation of The Eyes Are Watching God, and this is a coming of age story. Who played the lead character? Jamie Starks. So in the film adaptation of Their Eyes Were Watching God, who played the lead character, Jamie Starks?
That's actually one of my favorite books.
Yeah, the film is pretty interesting too. I saw the film a while back. Seems like I've seen everything a while back. Let's talk about two people together. Her grandmother and her mother, Renee. And the grandmother hid a few things.
Yeah.
And when Mishi confronted Renee the second time, she opened up a lot more and understood. So talk about how the grandmother-mother relationship was between Grandma and Renee, and then the realization that Mishi had after meeting her mother in Houston. The second time.
So I think her grandmother's biggest issue with her mother is that she's just kind of disappointed. She knows that Mitchie's a great kid because she's been the one who's raised her whole life. And that's very similar to me. My grandmother raised me, and we're incredibly close. And I think it's hard for her grandmother to see the effect of Renee's absence, and feel like she doesn't care enough to fix it. And she's really conflicted because, at the same time, Mitchie's mother is her daughter. So she can never really cut those ties off completely, but she has distanced herself because she knows that she can't really straddle both of their lives at the same time without hurting Mitchie. And there are times when you kind of see her try and defend Renee a little bit, and Mitchie it hurts her because she thinks like, you're supposed to be on my side, like it's you and me, and now you're trying to defend this person who continues to hurt me, and it's a really hard position to be in, but I think overall, she does do some kind of slippery stuff to get to a resolution, and I think as much as Mitchie wants to feel angry about that, she knows in her heart that her grandmother has always only done what's best for her. And that, just because you don't have, your typical, biological mother in your life doesn't mean that you don't have a mother, which has been her grandmother her whole life, and just kind of really starting to understand that, your family doesn't have to look like, the ones that you see on the Brady Bunch or something. They can be whatever you make them. And so for her, her grandmother and her friends, she realizes are her family. And I think that is really ultimately what she learns over the course of the book.
Yeah. And now, but her grandmother hid a key truth from her, which I found interesting, and I'm not sure. I know what the answer was, but if I was Mishi and my grandmother who raised me gave me that answer, I'm not sure I would buy it. How did you feel after you look back and you wrote that about the truth that came out there? I'm trying to not be a spoiler.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. That was actually a pretty late change as well. Originally, her mother is the person who instigated a lot of that. And my editor thought, like, what if we made this moment later in the book? And it really made me think about, her grandmother is through and through a problem solver. She's a nurse, and to her, she has this problem of a teenager, Mitchie, who is just unable to get past the lack of relationship with her mother. And for her, she thinks that the only solution is that's the only solution. And it is dishonest. And I'm sure, after the events of the book, they had a deeper conversation about it. But I think for her, it was worth the kind of temporary hit that their relationship would take if it would ultimately help Mitchie go on in her life. So it was worth it to her.
It was, and it was in this was my take when I read it. It was that Wizard of Oz moment when Nishi realized there's no place like home.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what she was looking for all the time was right there in front of her.
Yes, exactly.
But so tell everybody what the takeaways that you want the readers to walk away from. I mean, I know it was a range of emotions. It touched a lot of chords. But specifically, what are the takeaways you want the readers to have after reading your book?
Yeah, I have a few. One big one is just self-acceptance. Not everyone is going to fulfill the role that you might want for them in your life. That's not due to your own shortcomings. A lot of time it's just due to what they have going on. So you really have to find a lot of that self-acceptance within yourself rather than, seeking it out from other people. I really want readers, especially teen readers, to think of therapy as a viable option for them. It can be scary. It really can, but to just see it on the page with a supportive group and a supportive therapist and know that there are people out there who want to help, and to just kind of get rid of some of the stigma of seeking help, of being medicated, and really anything to do with mental health, because you can't be physically healthy or emotionally healthy if you're not mentally healthy. So that was a really big one. And last, I think as, a child of sexual assault, I think there's a lot of people who kind of want to speak for us and want to use us kind of like as a pawn. Like, oh, well, what about, these people? And the thing is, like, we have our own lives, we have our own voices. And a lot of us get a little bit tired of people kind of assuming what we would want, or what we think the outcome should have been, whether we value, body autonomy and being able to make those decisions for yourself. And so this was just a way for me to introduce the perspective of a teenager who lives like that. I had no goal in, lecturing anyone or coming down on an issue. I mean, even Mitchie is still trying to figure it out for herself, but just kind of introduce that perspective so people can see it, can interact with it, and maybe it'll inform some of their discourse.
Your book is spoken with an incredibly powerful voice at such a young age on some very deep issues. The other takeaway that I got from this is, we may not all be the same, but we're not all that different either.
Right.
And people can start coming to that realization. We all struggle with the same problems, whether we're born in a different time period or whether we have different ethnicity. It doesn't matter. We're all human. We all face those problems, and that came across in this book loud and clear. Because regardless of the color of your skin, when you're a teenager, you go through these same types of problems, and teenagers have to deal with them. They were dealt differently with 55, 65, 85 years ago than they are today. And some of it's technology driven, social media driven, for a lot of different reasons, different kind of pressures, but they're pressures. And it's well written, and I congratulate you on the story.
Thank you.
Great job. So what's next? What, a sequel, a follow-up?
Yeah. I'm just chipping away at my second book. It's not a sequel, but it still kind of explores some of the themes of what it means to be a family. It deals a lot more with grief. And I think this book was about, how do you have a relationship with a parent that you don't have access to? And my next book is a bit more about how do you maintain a strange relationship with a parent that you do have access to, and how that's different. So yeah, I'm excited.
Well, we're excited too. When it's ready to hit the streets, contact us.
Oh, for sure.
Very excited.
No, absolutely.
Well, thank you for coming on. You were charming. It's a wonderful piece of literature, and I enjoyed reading it. And good luck to you. And we'll see you as soon as that next one's ready. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
All right. Good show. Oh, I loved that interview, and I'm just so much more excited to read the book now than I already was. And I was already, up here.
And in 2 weeks, we have another exciting book. again, talking about family, it's the year that ruined our lives, and it's a road trip that takes place across Central America. And I'm excited to have poor Carlino on to explain that one to us. But it's another exciting show coming up in 2 weeks. Can't wait.
Yes. And I do want to say really quickly, so we did actually just now get a winner for that last trivia question. So
Great.
the answer was Halle Berry. Halle Berry was the actress. Lucella Flaherty got that one correct. So
All
we
right.
will send her a book. And yes, next time I see you, it will be September. The
It
months
will
just
be
keep rolling
September.
on.
I know. We're closing in on the end of our 3rd year, Grace.
I know, it's amazing. I think the lineup just keeps getting better and better. We have more exciting things like Gatsby's Tavern in October. We will keep you all updated on information as it comes out.
Great.
All right. Well, until I see you next time, until we see everyone live in October, everyone, be the good news in someone's life.